What's up? Hey, what's up? What's up, everyone? Friday Cryptomusings live. How's it going? Live on YouTube and on TikTok. Now, let's play some free licensed music. Let's look it up. I'm gonna play some music before. This probably doesn't sound that great on YouTube. Let's see. Audio can. How's it going? Oh, this is too. It's like too much. I need some more calm music. Some chill hop. Lo-fi, yeah. I have this theory that, like, you know, before we we used to be more about like artists and events, but I feel like in 2022, I mean, hip hop, there's a lot of artists that are relevant, but how do you say it? Like, the main aesthetic of the 2020s, like, it's been happening for a while. It's mostly like, you know, chill hop. That's the sound of this generation. You know, it's like this chill hop, vibey type of thing, no audio, whatever. But yeah. Hey, Manuel, how's it going? Gene, we're trying some lo-fi beats while we wait for people to come join. Can you hear it all right? The lo-fi? Wow. So what's everyone been up to? What's been happening this week in the news? I feel like reading crypto news is not my forte. But let's see. Friday jams, yeah. Let's see what Bray says to me are. Bitcoin proponents to rally to oppose Bitcoin mining moratorium. Yeah, I didn't read too much about that, but I guess there's some. Okay, we can start turning down profiles. I guess some people trying to ban Bitcoin mining in New York, and people are banning that. Honestly, I think proof of work is going to stay with Bitcoin. I think there's like space for like one cryptocurrency to actually implement like a proof of work algorithm. I don't think more than one makes a lot of sense, especially for computational cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum. I don't think it makes sense. But I think Bitcoin is going to remain, right? Like, Bitcoin is moving towards being the financial infrastructure, right? The payments layer for the internet, and like the global reserve currency. That's their kind of stated goal. And it's basically, it's being backed by energy. That's what, in the end, is backing it. It's a little more abstract, but yeah, it seems like that's going to be the one thing that you're going to be able to anchor it. So the price of Bitcoin is somehow going to be anchored to the price of the energy that is consumed to do it. I mean, it currently is. And so yeah, I have my very I have a lot of doubts that Bitcoin will actually ever move away from that. And core protocol developers, that's so core to the protocol that changing that and putting a change like that through the Bitcoin improvement process is going to be extremely hard, and yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it. I just don't see anyone. Yeah, I just don't see Bitcoin moving away from proof of work, and I don't know if it should. I think, yeah, generally the proof of work is only effective in places that have access to cheap energy. So as long as it's not government subsidized cheap energy like it is in a place like Venezuela, then proof of work actually encourages the finding of renewable resources or cheap and expendable energy. And of course, there's the thing that, like, if you have access to these resources, if you have access to those resources already, then like usually these resources are in remote locations that it's not close to the main cities that are actually going to be consumers of that energy. So, and transporting that energy out of those places is quite a difficult task, and it's a very ineffective task, and it's a task that not a lot of people actually do. And so Bitcoin is a way for really remote places that have access to this cheap energy to monetize that access to that energy and to create the secure layer and a credibly neutral layer for the global financial infrastructure of the world. So I don't know that that'll ever move away from that. Let's see, what else happened? Was the other side drop this week? When was the other side drop? That I guess it was last week. Yeah. But see, I never actually looked at the contract for the other side NFT. I don't know how ineffective it was in terms of gas optimizations. From what I understand, they didn't follow good practices, but still the congestion in the network was just so much that no matter how many gas optimizations you would have done, it would have still been an arm and a leg to actually mint one of those things, because you have quadruple digits. I've never seen quadruple digits. Quadruple digit gas prices. That's insane. Like at the at a regular peak hours and the height of the 2021 NFT hype, you were seeing, like, at peak hours you were seeing like 200 Gwei gas prices, but this was 2,000. So this was 10 times more expensive than any 10 times more expensive than any other NFT drop at the height of 2021. So it's like, it's not going to be cheap. You're still talking like hundreds, not thousands of dollars to do simple transactions on the network. I'm trying to find the other side contract. Let's see if I go through it from Eagles. Hey, how's it going? Wish me luck. I have interview at 1:30 p.m. Javi, how's the governance token going? It's been a while. It's going great. The Valorize app is running. We're doing like a test token launch yet. Definitely good luck on your interview. What type of role is it for? Is it technical role or non-technical? Hopefully you get it. They'd be fools not to hire you because you come to my streams. But um, but yeah, the governance token is going. We're coming up with a specification for the two token model. I just saw that A16Z released this 16Z released this two token governance model, governance token model, which is very similar to the structure that we were thinking of doing for our main governance token, which is really bullish for what we're doing. We're actually going to make this accessible for anyone to be able to launch it without having to write any code. As soon as we implement it for ourselves, we're gonna make it. You're gonna make it so everyone's gonna have access to this two token model. But yeah, we're developing it. But yeah, it was super bullish to see that Anders and Horowitz basically came up with a very similar um, structure and kind of are thinking about the same problems that I was thinking about and thinking through the solutions similarly to how I was thinking about them. So that's one of the most bullish things that I've seen in a while. What are my thoughts on ETH 2.0? Big deal or big nothing? No, ETH 2.0 is like a massive engineering effort that is finally being pulled off. And ETH 2.0 is really just like switching the core consensus algorithm of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. And so no, that's a huge deal. Once you have that, it's going to have a state sharding Ethereum is going to have, and Ace and RDX, who I just saw him step in the chat, is going to tell everyone how problematic that is because of the lack of atomicity in transactions. But yeah, you're going to have state sharding in Ethereum, not directly after ETH 2.0, but it's basically the kind of like the core prerequisite for ETH 2.0. And so once you have state sharding, you're basically able to multiply the capacity of the network by a significant amount. And so, but that's not coming right away, but it's just the swapping of the core consensus layer of the algorithm, which is just like, it's like an incredibly massive undertaking. That's why it's been taking so long. So yeah, in terms of engineering effort, it's great. In terms of what you as an end user are gonna experience, it's not gonna quite like, you're not gonna feel so much of a difference. I heard sharding on ETH could cause more congestion. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. I would be interested in seeing what the possible criticisms of that might be. Yeah, I don't know. I have to see. I'm drinking from my programmer cup. This was a birthday gift from my sister last year. Drinking some black tea. Yeah, I would love to hear some info about who's saying that it would cost more. Cost more thing. Is it state sharding though? Each shard will have in shard consensus. Interesting. I don't know exactly how the consensus could be split out. I mean, so that's basically the Polkadot model, right? Which each shard is basically its own independent blockchain almost, with the core consensus layer being the Polkadot kind of system, the uncharted Polkadot. But let's say shard. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. If you could possibly have. I'll have to go through this. Actually, I'm not like super up to date with sharding and how that process is going, how that affects how it affects validations and consensus and stuff like that. Shards will have separate validators storing in shard state. Huh, interesting. So you basically have to validate depending on the shard. Um, yeah, I have to look into it. Honestly, I will I will be humble enough to say that I don't know enough about the internals of how sharding is going to affect the consensus of Ethereum, to say to speak intelligently about it. I'm seeing these great resources that like these sharding facts. But yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. Like parachains each have their own set of validators, 5 to 10 validators that are doing from what I understand, though, the main validators are going to be doing at layer zero. I mean, that model does make sense to me intuitively, that there's going to be kind of like a superset of validators which hold the majority of the consensus of the mechanism, or the consensus mechanism of the network. And then you have like some smaller validators per shard. And I guess you're going to be able to do application specific shards. I mean, you are able to do that in Polkadot, but I don't know exactly how Polkadot is going to differ from Ethereum as more shards, as sharding actually takes place. If it's going to be as sort of modular and extensive as Polkadot is, Ethereum, right? Because Polkadot is basically just Ethereum already sharded, with each parachain being its own shard, and it has its own app logic. And to communicate through them, you have to do kind of like a bridge through the main layer, which I think is going to be very similar to what you have to do with Ethereum. But yeah, I don't know if that does split the validators of the network. I don't know how much I like that approach. But yeah. Relay chain is analogous to beacon chain. Interesting. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm gathering. That is very similar models. Yeah, you always give me homework, Ace and Morty, Ace and Crypto Maxi, Ace Crypto Maxi. You always give me homework to do. I appreciate that, because I honestly don't know enough about like the differences between the two. It's like there's just so much to learn. I've been doing a deep dive on the Lightning Network, which is honestly like, it's such a cool layer 2 solution to Bitcoin, and I hadn't really grasped how intelligent of a design approach it is to the core layer, and so yeah, I'm really excited about it. But yeah, so let's see. Can I elaborate on the difference between ours and Tokenomics DAO 2-token model and ours? So Tokenomics DAO is actually quite similar. I think it's going to converge, and we're going to be discussing it as we go about developing it for both of us. But yeah, so Tokenomics DAO is trying to tie their 2-token model to contributions. So it's like the minting of tokens is going to be tied to the contributions given by people. So it's like if you write an article. Okay, so let's talk about the 2-token model in general for governance, right? So my thesis is that governance tokens are bad money, and we design them as though they're money, right? And so I'm trying to challenge that notion. My intuition is to build governance tokens in a highly inflationary, or quote unquote inflationary, where you distribute more tokens over time. So you have like a exponential increase in token supply, like 100% year over year, or something along those lines. The exact percentages haven't been defined yet, and it could be variable. It could be 25% for the first 4 years, and moving up to 50% for the next 2 years, and 100% year over year after that. But the reason why we want highly inflationary tokens is because that way, people that are not active, like as long as you are distributing the tokens to the most active members of the community, the most valuable members of the community, and that's a non-trivial task. But as long as you are constantly distributing the tokens to the people that are providing value to your community, then the increase in supply of tokens is actually not problematic, because it's being spread by people that are actively contributing. Now, of course, inflating a token supply and doubling its supply year over year, like I'm saying, is a highly it produces a constant downward price pressure on the token, like in terms of price. But again, my idea is that governance tokens are bad money, and they shouldn't be sort of being held under the same constraints as as money. So however, right, you are valuing contributions at a certain level, and that allows you to vote on certain things about the DAO, and that allows the people that are that are producing value to have the most voting weight in any decision. Now, um, of course, you do want to have an ability for people that stop contributing to sort of check out and capture the value that they've already created, um, and not be faced with this like constantly decreasing monetary unit, which is the governance token. And so that's what we're looking at, like two token model, in which you're basically one is going to be extremely inflationary, 100% year over year, and one is going to be more deflationary, more stabilizing, kind of like a Bitcoin curve, like a logarithmic scale, where the more tokens in circulation, the harder it's going to be to generate new tokens. And at any point, you're going to be able to exit out of the governance token and go into this price utility token, which is going to be transferable. The governance token is going to be non-transferable to people, and it's going to be kind of like a point system that says how valuable you've been to the community. And the value token is going to be the tradable token that you can actually go into decentralized exchanges and list it and have value for it. Now, tokenomics, like, so I'm proposing highly inflationary token that is based on the amount of time that passes. And so it's inflating no matter what happened in the community. And it's inflating at this constant rate of like 100%, or this variable rate of 100% year over year, assuming that you are distributing the tokens to the people that are providing value. In tokenomics DAO, what they are proposing is that each time that a contributor provides a valuable contribution, let's say through writing an article in their like in their DAO, like if someone comes in and writes an article, that contribution generates tokens in itself. So it's not that every so often tokens are minted, it's every contribution tokens are minted. I think both can be quite interesting approaches. I don't know. I think we'll have to test them out in practice. I think it's simpler like to have it based on a time lock schedule, like on a time basis, and just doubling the supply every year, and that gives it like the kind of the supply generation a steady rate. And as long as you're distributing the tokens, it shouldn't matter what that steady rate is, right? Or it matters what that rate is, but it shouldn't matter like that. You're measuring the contributions outside of the token distribution paradigm, and so you're just like, I don't think that it needs to be tied to the distributions themselves. But the thesis that tokenomics DAO has is that each contribution, like that the governance value of the token is not going to be deflationary. It's not going to outrun the value that the community has created generally, which is an interesting thesis. And I can't tell you exactly whose is going to be better, but it seems very, very similar actually overall. And I think this experiment is going to be really cool. It looks like A16Z. I want to find that article because I saw the summary of the article from Tokenomics DAO Twitter. Hey Pat, how's it going? Talking about like the governance token. My criticism of regular governance tokens and how we're building like a 2-token governance model that is going to solve that criticism, and it's cool because Andreessen Horowitz A16Z released a paper in which they discuss very similar things to what we're thinking, and it's also what this other DAO is thinking of doing. And so it's kind of like this idea is in the air, and that makes me extremely bullish on that idea, because if other people are thinking about the same problems and the solutions that they're coming up with are along the same lines of what we're thinking about it, I think that's cause to think that we're heading in the right direction. And then what's cool is that we're going to basically build that into Valorize, and I think that's going to become the standard if several people are thinking about it, or at least one of the standards that are popping up. And so we're going to build that into Valorize, and anyone is going to be able to have one of these tokens. And basically, as we explain how these tokens work, I think more people are going to be interested in implementing something like that for communities that they're building. And we're going to have the tools that allows them to do that very easily without having to hire a developer. So yeah, we have our in-house scientist in the chat, Marco, and he's doing a lot of the head work to make that out, and we're going to be implementing it. We're probably going to start implementing it in the next couple of months. But we're expecting it out first. What are my thoughts on CBDC, central bank digital currencies? I've been reading about them lately. Let me take a sip for that. I think it's inevitable that banks are going to want to do that. I think it's not going to be effective, and I think it's going to be basically on the same playing field as cryptocurrencies, as something like Bitcoin. And the thing about that is that like you're not going to be able to take down Bitcoin. Like banks are and governments are going to be unable to take down Bitcoin. They might make it illegal. They might try to make it illegal, and that honestly would be very problematic. But they're not going to be able to take it down, and so it's going to be interesting if they decide to make a central bank digital currency and make any other cryptocurrency use illegal. Then that could be devastating for the crypto markets. But I don't think that they're going to do that. And I don't think like they're not going to do that because that's going to stifle a lot of innovation, right? And they're basically going to be, as they are today, kind of competing head to head with the sort of cryptocurrency as like a base currency, as a reserve currency. And it's going to be a kind of democratic process, like a democratic in the true sense of the word, that it's not going to be a voting process. It's going to be people voting based on what their preference is, what their going to be people voting on through the money that they use, through the money that they trust, and things like that. Like, you had Elizabeth Warren saying to Fidelity that they were questioning why they were having Bitcoins in their 401ks, right? Like, why the decision to do that? And I mean, that makes sense. It's like they're scared because they've never really played in fair competition. Actually, the United States has been, since World War II, kind of forcing the adoption of the US dollar, the global reserve currency. And that's because they operate under this modern monetary theory in which they are the main issuers of debt in the world. And in a world where you issue debt in your own currency, you can print as much currency as you want and issue as much debt as you want, and there's no consequences, quote unquote. Like, if you have the ability to issue debt in your own currency, and if you have the ability to issue debt in a currency that you created, and you have the ability to print that currency, actually you can take on as much debt as you want to fund whatever you want to fund, which is kind of like the core tenet of this branch of economics called modern monetary theory. The thing is, though, that like the United States has a very privileged position of being the kind of global reserve currency of the world, right? And so they maintain that status through the strength of the U.S. military, right? That's one of the reasons. And when people have historically tried to move away from that or try to do things that undermine that, it's often found that there is a dictator, that the U.S. labels that country has a dictator and goes in, frees the country with the force of the U.S. military, and takes them out. So the U.S. is not going to go down without a fight. Like the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency is not going to go down without a fight. So I do think that central bank digital currency is going to be one of the last lines in the sand that they're going to be drawing. But then it's going to be a sort of a democratic decision, right? Where the people that live in the countries that are being ruled, like, there's going to be like Canada, right? That the you're in, and like they have a lot of debt based on U.S. dollars, right? And the U.S. is basically gonna say stuff like, okay, if you don't take on debts based on U.S. dollars, well then we're not gonna support you in case of military actions taken against Canada, and kind of do this blackmail thing that they usually do. But for other countries like El Salvador, like the Democratic Republic of Congo, like corrupt third world countries, they're gonna like taking on Bitcoin as a global reserve currency is going to be much more. It's going to be seen as a much more favorable thing to do, right? And so I think that as more countries start adopting it, it's going to be seen as a viable option to go into something like Bitcoin, and then it's gonna eventually just be like people able to decide. People are going to decide with their money, with their decisions, which currency is going to take over overall. This is how I think it's going to play out. I don't know for sure. Definitely, if the US government issues a CBDC and they make the use of other cryptocurrencies illegal, there is a high chance that the market is going to be down by a lot. But we'll see. If they don't force people, if they don't make other cryptocurrencies illegal, then it's basically going to be competing on an even playing field, where actually the better currency is gonna win, and the better currency is not the US dollar, because I think people are going to decide that that's not what they want with the thing that they use. Have I watched Line Goes Up documentary on NFTs issues and token governance were mentioned? Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying. Some of the issues that are raised in that documentary are the things that we are solving with the two token reputation token, or like the governance token and the value token model that we're building out in Valorize. But yeah, I have seen that. Actually, I have a podcast. Let's see if I can I put something on this thing? Comments. Let's see if I can. I'll send something here, because there's this podcast, the Web3 podcast with Sam Kamini. Let's see, Web3 with Sam Kamani. And there is a podcast episode that we did. Let's see if I can send it out here. Let's see, let me send it to myself. Web3 with Sam Kamani podcast. Episode number 24 is a podcast episode that we did. Where we talked we talked extensively about our response to that episode. So let me actually, I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Let's comment. Okay, looks like, yeah, it's episode 24. For anchor.fm/web3 podcast, episode 24. I talked extensively about what I think about that. But yeah, curious about my thoughts on building on Avalanche. Avalanche is one of the few blockchains that are, quote unquote Ethereum killers, quote unquote, like alternative layer ones, that I think is doing the right trade-offs in terms of scalability. Because the way that they built their protocol, they they did like a whisper protocol, and they did this gossip protocol. And it turns out actually that in order to maliciously overtake the network, you need 2/3 of the validator nodes, which I think is an improvement overall to the core infrastructure, which is more than I can say for most other projects. Like, if you take, as I do, that the core issue that blockchains are solving is immutability, is uncensorability. I guess uncensorability is really the core problem that blockchains are solving. Uncensorable computation. And I think that the core improvement to the protocol, that to the consensus layer that Avalanche did, was create a less censorable system in a proof of stake context. And therefore I think it's quite good. I think, the thing about it is that it's really hard to compete with the network effects, and Ethereum has the network effects, whether you like that or not, whether that's a good decision or not. Ethereum has the network effects. So all these other alternatives are competing for developers, are competing for infrastructure, are competing for the ecosystem. It is Avalanche is EVM compatible. Avalanche is EVM compatible, and therefore could possibly, like, is taking some market share from Ethereum. That it does take some market share from Ethereum, but yeah, I just find that so hard. And in the end, it's like going where users is. I like, Emin Gunzer. He's a very smart dude, a very intellectual, like academic researcher on consensus protocols. I like his approach, and if you hear him talk, he says, we're not going after Ethereum's market share. We're going over the rest of the market share that hasn't been eaten up by Ethereum yet. We're trying to onboard new people in there. So I think it's good. I don't know the status of its decentralization in terms of like who can actually do it, but at the core consensus layers, I overall think it's a good idea, and I'm very happy that is one sort of network that is popular, because the research that they're doing is very applicable, and I think it's research in the right direction. So like from a research perspective, I don't know if they'll be able to take on the network effects of their RE. Two token governance. Is it merit in a system that sacrifices token rewards to increase voting power? So the two token system. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me answer Neil first. Are algorithmic stablecoins a Ponzi? That's a good question. Depends on how you define Ponzi. It is kind of like this fractional reserve type of situation, where you have Luna, and you create Luna by burning Terra, or you create UST by burning Terra, right? So you have Terra that has a market value, and then you have UST, which you generate by burning Terra at its current market value. And I think that there is some conversion where it's not exactly its current market value to account for the volatility, but yeah, like that's kind of like the mechanism to generate new Terra, new UST, is by burning Terra. The thing is that it also has to work in reverse. You have to be able to burn UST to get your Terra in return, and therefore the price of UST is really based on the amount of Terra, or on the market value of Terra, which is highly volatile, which is the reason why the core team went and bought Bitcoin, as to guarantee some level of market, like of floor value, that if Terra starts going down a lot, like the value of UST is gonna come out. So the regulating mechanism is that you can burn Terra to generate UST, and you can burn UST to generate Terra. But if people are going a lot on the direction of UST towards Terra, then the supply of Terra is increasing. And if they're trying to do that to hop out of the ecosystem, people don't really. And if the price of Terra is going down, then people's confidence in UST is going down, and people are going to want to exit that system more. And it's going to there's this possibility of like what they're calling this infinite spiral, the infinite death spiral of Terra to Luna, because as the price of Terra is tanking, people's trust in UST goes down, which means that they want to exit the system, which means that that causes even more downward pressure on Terra, and which causes even less confidence on UST, which causes more downward pressure on Terra, and it creates this infinite death spiral, which is a real possibility, right? It hasn't happened yet, but USD hasn't been around for like a massive market downturn. Like Bitcoin going to 3,000 in 2020, 2020. So it's still left to be seen if it's resilient under those conditions. Not the case. However, right, the Terra Luna or whatever, Lequan or whatever his name is, they decided to go and buy a bunch of Bitcoin to prevent this possibility. So it's not only pegged on the so USD is not only pegged to this Terra price, which begs the question is like, how algorithmic is it, right? Like, because it's algorithmic because it has like something else. It has something like it's done automatically, but some organization is actually going by and buying other assets and dollar equivalents. So now it's no longer an algorithmic stablecoin, right? Because the value is not defined by the mechanism, and therefore, in some sense, that is kind of like a condemnation of the Terra Luna, of the UST algorithmic stablecoin process. Now, Sperax USD, which I have some interviews with the founders in my feed, they do a kind of a joint approach. Sperax uses the UST model, but it's also backed by collateral that is not in the form of that is in different forms. So Sperax is a Ethereum-based stablecoin. I think it's mostly on Arbitrum network, and they have the Sperax token, which has a market price, which is like the DAO token to vote, and you can burn the Sperax token along with other currencies to generate new USD. So then you have more like the MakerDAO model. The MakerDAO is over collateralized. 150% of the amount of DAI in circulation is in the multi-sig reserves of the MakerDAO multi-sig. So they have 150% collateral, which gives you this kind of resilience and volatility. But they have that, but because having 150% over collateralized stablecoins is quite difficult to maintain. It's quite what they're saying is capital inefficient, because those funds need to just be sitting there. You can't put that money to work because you need to have it over collateralized going to the smart contract. Is kind of capital inefficient. So they have kind of like this dual model where they have this collateral, but they also have this Sperax token, which is what UST is kind of moving more towards anyway. So in some sense, this like hybrid collateral and algorithmic stablecoins seem to be kind of like an answer that is balancing the risk of both those things. I don't think necessarily that they are a Ponzi, but there is high risks in purely algorithmic stablecoins, and the fact that they went to buy Bitcoin is kind of like proof that this purely algorithmic stablecoin is maybe not as a bulletproof of a mechanism that people are making it out to be. Okay. Calwitty, two-token governance. Their merit system that sacrifices token rewards to increase voting power. By giving up 100% of my token rewards, 10x my voting power. So the two-token system that we're talking about is that you are getting, it's a token system in which you are getting voting power for contributions. So you sacrifice voting power for monetary rewards in some sense. So if you want the monetary rewards, you yield your governance power, right? Because it's like a kind of a reputation-based system that we are assuming that you are we are we are distributing governance tokens to the people that are actively contributing to the community. And so we're assuming that the people that have the governance tokens are actively valuable, and we're issuing these tokens at such an inflationary rate that if you are no longer very valuable to the community, your governance power is going down over time, right? Because it's so inflationary. But these are not transferable governance tokens, right? So you can think of it as kind of like this point system that you get. And at any point, you can cash out some of these governance tokens for this other token that doesn't have the same kind of upward inflation pressure or like downward price pressure. You can cash it out for another token, this kind of like value token, which is like the utility token for Valorize, which has the opposite kind of curve of distribution, meaning that the more that they are in circulation, the harder it is to create. With the governance tokens, we're making a model where the more that there are in distributions, actually, the more tokens are created each doubling cycle. It's built on a doubling cycle that is year over year, it's doubling. And these other tokens that we have, the value tokens, are kind of having each doubling cycle. And therefore they get harder. So at any point, if you want to cash out kind of like monetary rewards of the contributions that you're doing, you yield your governance power to cash out your rewards. We're doing this because we're also going to be paying contributors with currency. So you get currency, you get money plus governance, not just governance as payment. Like we're not just paying governance that get devalued, because we want to work against systems that basically reward people that disproportionately like have financial freedom. You know, if a DAO is only paying people with governance tokens, then the people that can vote in the DAO are people that received governance tokens and didn't have to sell them to pay their rent. So we want people to be able to pay their rent and keep the governance tokens. So that means that we're going to have to pay people in money, not just governance tokens. So those are the kind of trade-offs. Exactly. So VC whales won the token reward. Smaller players can still control governance. Yeah, smaller players, but the key is valuable contributors are the ones that have the governance in this model. And we're working it out. We're specking it out with our chief research scientist Marco, who was in the comments earlier. And we're going to be basically specking the token and making a release and making it so that anyone can release the same kind of governance token, two token model for their community. That's in the roadmap. So yeah, if you want to be involved in that, join Valorize DAO, at least in the discussions. So every Monday on Valorize DAO, we're alternating. So each Monday it's like Tokenomics Academy and then Tokenomics Research Lab, where we put the application of the theory that we're reading into developing. The first thing in the Tokenomics Research Lab is that we're working on is this two token model. So if you're interested in this discussion, you want to get involved, I have the link in my bio. You can join Valorize DAO through there. And yeah, please come out every Monday at 1 p.m. Central. Yeah, Tokenomics Workshop. Tokenomics Academy is coming next Monday, and Tokenomics Research Lab is next Monday, and we're going to be alternating 1-on-1. That's the chief research scientist right there, Marco Huberts. Smart guy. But yeah, so much rambling. Oh yeah, next Wednesday I'm also doing like what I'm calling Bitcoin 201. So it's like advanced Bitcoin, kind of like the things that I've been going over in my latest playlist. Oh hey, you were there last Monday, Callie Whitty. Awesome. Yeah, glad to see that you were there. But yeah, every next Wednesday I'm doing Bitcoin 201 in Knowledge Chain, which is like Sean Penn Jr. If you've seen him around in TikTok, he has this knowledge chain, and I'm doing Bitcoin 201 where I'm going in depth and like, I think I'm going to be assuming some basic familiarity with the concepts, but then we're going to be going into like into how proof of work actually works, what exactly is being hashed, how the longest chain, Nakamoto consensus actually works, how to generate wallets, what it means to sign a transaction in Bitcoin, what it means to spend Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain, how does the unspent transaction output model of Bitcoin actually work. So if you're interested in kind of like doing a deeper dive in Bitcoin, and I really recommend that you do if you're in this space, going deep on Bitcoin is like one of the things that have paid off significantly in my life. So we're going to be Bitcoin 201 starting next Wednesday, and we're going to be doing probably 4 lectures in there. So definitely join it. Knowledge chain. I'll have to make a video where I link to that. But yeah, and I think I'm gonna make also. I've been working through mastering the Lightning Network, and I think I'm gonna start making content on the Lightning Network because it's such a cool protocol. Like I didn't realize. I mean, I knew about it in a high level, but the Lightning Network is an amazing piece of infrastructure. They're really approaching it the right way in the Bitcoin space. They're approaching it as protocols, not as an application. Which honestly, even Ethereum, I think, falls into the type of projects that are approaching development of Ethereum core as an application. Bitcoin is, yeah, I mean, they're just approaching this as kind of like layers on a protocol. So it's like the Bitcoin protocol. It's about doing value transfer on the internet, and the Lightning Network is a way to scale up that without having to commit every single transaction on chain in a way that increases privacy and this kind of and speed. And the way that it's working is like you're locking in your funds into a smart contract in Bitcoin, because there are smart contracts in Bitcoin, just not very sophisticated ones. But as you're locking it into a multi-sig wallet, and then you're creating a node, and then this node has a public address, and you can spend however money you put into this smart contract. So if you put 1 Bitcoin and the other person puts 1 Bitcoin, there's like 2 Bitcoin total that can be sent across each other. So if I send you, so we basically have a channel in which we can send as many Bitcoins with very low fees to each other back and forth. But the thing is that this node has a public address that any other node in the Lightning Network can route payments through. So if I need to send something to someone that I don't have a channel open with, I can find a path through the nodes that will allow people to distribute my payment to the place that I'm trying it for it to go. And so you're basically just routing your payment through this network of nodes that have these channels open, and you can do that in really effective ways. So it happens to be more effective for micro payments, and then to handle bigger payments is you do kind of like a stream payment where you split your payments into a bunch of micro payments, and then you route them to the destination node where you're trying to go. And that is just like it's such a clever design, actually, and it's really cool because it's in Ethereum layer 2, you're basically from a user experience, you are entering a new ecosystem. If you go to Arbitrum, you enter a new ecosystem where the applications that you're used to using um, are not compatible with the Arbitrum, or like you have to redeploy an Arbitrum, and things like OpenSea don't have Arbitrum compatibility, which is a shame because it's like, yes, it's a layer 2 on Ethereum, but it's as though you're entering a new blockchain with even less from a user experience. That's how it feels like, um, as opposed to this where it's like you're just dramatically increasing the usability of the core protocol. And then, of course, there's RGB tokens, which I've talked about a lot, mostly in my live streams. I haven't done it so many videos in TikTok, but RGB tokens is it stands for really good Bitcoin, and it's a way to create to create synthetic assets on top of Bitcoin, but in a way that is completely client-side validated. So you're basically sending the entire proof of transaction, the entire like state transition function from you to the person that is interested in receiving the payments, and it's done in a way where only a commitment is put on chain, but that commitment can be attached to any transaction. So you don't have to execute a transaction on chain in order to create a new commitment. I mean, no, that's not true. You have to execute a transaction on chain to generate a new commitment, but the on chain commitment has no knowledge that this is an RGB transaction, and therefore you can actually do like a regular transaction, like for example, like opening a Lightning channel on Bitcoin, and that transaction, which you might have done anyway, or sending your Bitcoin from your wallet to an exchange, like that transaction that you would have done anyway, you can actually use that to commit a separate transaction on this kind of like RGB layer to transfer assets from one person to another one, which is like a really interesting thing. And all the fancy computation that you're doing it like is only executed by the interesting parties that only, and all the proof that you're sending to the interested parties are basically things relevant to that particular transaction. So instead of every node having to replicate every single computation, you have a partial state tree that you are passing through, like that you are sending to the recipient of that, and then you're just sending them the things that are relevant for them, as opposed to Ethereum, where every node knows every status of every other smart contract in every like ever in the chain. So each, if I'm sending USDT in Ethereum, I need to like put the transaction in the same kind of database as the Uniswap database, and as the whatever. Like all these applications are working within in the same kind of database. But in the RGB model, it's like you're only sending partial state proofs, which guarantee that you are able to send the transaction, but you're not sending the entire state of the entire database of every single application that's built on this thing. So it's like a much cleverer model, honestly. I think it's going to be really cool. Let's see. ICP just started syncing with BTC testnets. Go chain key cryptography. That's awesome. Yeah, chain key cryptography, I think is gonna like revolutionize what we can do, because now you're gonna be able, and like even beyond ICP, like any protocol is gonna be able to do, like any application is gonna be able to sign Bitcoin transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain without having to go without having to be custodial. Like you're not gonna have to like have a non-custodial solution to do Bitcoin transactions for someone else. I think that's gonna be applied to a bunch of different applications if that research is open source. I don't know how open source that research is. Are there any possible issues with the aggregate of off-chain transactions not balancing? Like if 100% need to be posted on chain all at once, basically this off-chain payment create a possibility for a float? No, it doesn't. Are you talking about the Lightning network? That is prevented by limiting the amount of funds that you can transfer between Lightning nodes, or each channel has an upper limit, so you cannot send more than the initial amount that you send to fund that original channel opening. So it's prevented that way. And so what could happen is that a channel, like a malicious, like if you opened a channel with a malicious actor on the other side of the node, and they try to close the channel, kind of cheating you out of the money that actually corresponds to you when you're acting. And if there's a dispute, you basically have a set amount of time to run that dispute. And if you can do kind of like this this cryptographic time signature proving that the other actor had actually sent those funds back to you, something like that, because you have to basically close the channel with a cryptographic proof of like what is the final state of the channel. And if you have cryptographic proof that you have a final state for that channel that is that has like an incorrect like, and that the other party is trying to close the channel with an incorrect balance from a previous state, then you basically get the entirety of the funds in that lightning channel sent to you. So if you can prove that the other person is closing the channel in a malicious way, you get the entirety of the funds. So yeah, like, but you need to have that proof, and you need to be watching for your channel being closed. I mean, you have software doing that for you. So you can only lose up to the amount that you put in, but yeah, if both parties agree on closing the channel, then the channel closes automatically with the settlement that both parties agreed to. That layer you discussed sounds like the Mina protocol off-chain compute, on-chain verification, ZK. Yeah, that does sound like what I'm talking about. I haven't looked too much at the Mina protocol. But yeah, I mean, if you can do that on Bitcoin, then I would rather do that on Bitcoin than on a new layer one, to be honest. But the thing about it is that we're still like a few years away from smart contracts on Bitcoin. So all the people that want to build stuff now, you have to do like these. You have to do these. You have to go to a different blockchain if you want to do the kind of things that, for example, I'm interested in doing, like synthetic assets, like tokenomics, incentive design, DAOs, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that the speed of protocol development in Bitcoin is so slow. But I do think that it's going to catch up, and it's going to eat a lot of the market back into Bitcoin itself. I know I'm looking forward to being able to do smart contracts on Bitcoin, like complex smart contracts, Turing complete smart contracts, and issuing assets and stuff like that. But yeah, okay, we're at 12:03. Awesome. All right. Yeah, colored coins. That was like the precursor. Now RGB coins is going to be like a huge improvement on that. And also Lightning Labs is coming up with a very similar system. It's called Turo. So I don't know which one of the two. I hope that those Turo and RGB coins merge into a single system, because like splitting that protocol development seems like a really dumb waste of resources. I don't know why that happened, but yeah. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for stopping by. That's an hour for me. This is all. I do this every Friday at the same time. So yeah. Oh, Ethereum was a solution to that problem, I thought. No, so yeah. I don't think that Ethereum was a solution to that problem, but I do think that the way that just Bitcoin is approaching it is so much better, because it is speccing out protocol improvements in the way that it's going about it. I don't know. The more that I understand kind of like the Bitcoin development lifecycle and like that, and like how they're going about putting improvements to the core protocol layers and building out like a very elegant system. Very bullish, and Ethereum is now running into a lot of problems scaling, and it is trying to solve them, but it seems like it's kind of like it goes back to say that like it's maybe Bitcoiners were right, and it definitely satisfied the need for like doing all this experimentation. So, for example, we're doing all this tokenomic experimentation on Ethereum, but if I was able to do something very similar on Bitcoin and use the research that I've done here, because the research is not tied specifically to the blockchain, but on incentive design and like all this research is economic design. Like if I'm able to move it back to Bitcoin, I would be very interested in seeing how that plays out. The thing is, like that ecosystem is going to take a long time. Like we're talking like, years ahead of time. While I'm able to actually experiment with real people with real solutions on Ethereum today. But yeah, exciting. Exciting things ahead of Valorize. Yes, agreed. Please join the Discord if you haven't. Join Tokenomic Academy on Monday, and every other Monday is Tokenomics Academy, and every other, like every other Monday is Tokenomics Academy, and the other Mondays is Tokenomics Research Lab, where we're building out the specification for this 2-token model. So please join if you want to be involved in that. And and if you want to launch your own token, Valorize is the place to do it. Some state-of-the-art token launching platform. And if you want a fancy token, get in touch with us, and we'll get that out for you. Thank you so much for joining. Stay nerdy, friends. Keep up the good work. Thanks for stopping by. It means so much to see y'all here. All right. Talk to y'all later.